Hey everyone, this is really just a continuation of the last video on how to use the no-sew hemming and to work a transfer. This one is going to be on how to work with embroidery floss. Um, it doesn't matter, of course, what color you use. I'm going to use red because that was the first one that was within my reach. With this, when the one thing that I learned when you're actually doing embroidery is that you don't actually use the entire thing. I just gotta find the end here. I hit the end for myself. That was stupid. Ha. Is this it? Please be it. Please be it. Ah, here we go. And when you're pulling here, you just... Oops, that was the wrong end. That was the end. Hold on. Ooh. Okay, well, we're just gonna have to pull the wrong end. And you just pull a couple, well, I don't need much more than that for a demonstration anyway. And then you cut. When you're actually doing this for real, don't pull any more than 18 inches. I can fix that later. Of course, you're going to need an embroidery hoop. These are actually pretty cheap. And you're always going to want to get an embroidery hoop that's actually larger than your design. So that way you can actually produce the tension in your design, so that way you can actually embroider, keep your stitches pretty good, stitches pretty straight. Two really easy stitches is what I'm going to show you. And tighten it, 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 tighten it. And there you go. It's pretty easy. And of course you're going to need needles. Here we go. I was embroidering last night, so all of the stuff is actually still in there. Needles. Alright. And then you actually separate your floss. And I'm going to actually use 2 strands of this floss for it, because this design called for 2 strands. And you just separate and straighten out the other pieces. And of course, you thread it. I recommend getting needles that have nice sized eyes. I'm going to turn it. There you go. And you can thread it. Of course, if you have trouble threading it, like I'm seeming to have now since I'm on camera, there we go. And most people, when they're embroidering, the first thing they do is use too much floss. You just need 2 or 3 strands, depending. And then people tend to knot it at the end. You actually don't knot when you're embroidering. You don't actually knot or anything like that. You half it, and then you don't do what I just did, and you drag it through. You start from the bottom, and you pick a starting point. Doesn't matter where. I'm gonna start down here at this bottom of the S, and then you come up, and then you pull through, and you leave just a bit, and you hold that down. It's really just that simple. And most people are like, well, it's going to keep coming through. It doesn't. I'm going to do what's called a split stitch, which is really easy. You just go down just a little bit of ways and come down like that and pull it pretty good. And then you actually just come, I don't know if you can see this, you guys. You just come up, just find the middle of where you were before, or about roughly the middle. That's not roughly, that's the edge. Of course, you're going to see it on the next day. There we go. And you come up just like that and pull through, kind of creating a little bit of a knot. And you come down and then come back up. And if you are going in circles, you make your stitches just that much smaller. And come down just like that, pull, and then you come up in the middle like that, and then you can actually let go and just embroider like that. And I've been doing split stitches for a while now, so they're really pretty easy to do until you make a stitch that's a little bit too small. then it kind of gets on your nerve, like that. And then you would just stitch all the way around your design, just like that. Okay, there we go. And we're going to do one more, just like that. Now, whenever you're ready to end the design that you've done, you don't knot it again. You actually just slip it through a piece of your embroidery before, that you've done before. And you can be a little bit neater than I am. And voila. It'll be knotted. Just do it a couple, like 2 or 3 times. Just like that. And then you cut kind of close. Leave about an inch, or less than an inch in my case. Just like that. And then I normally tend to leave, I know this is probably really evil, just a few pieces on the floor for the cat to play with, and then she kind of eats, but it binds her hairballs, and it actually works. Versus having to clean up loose hairballs, which is disgusting. Okay, and a split stitch would end up looking kind of like this, which is, it's really pretty stitch. You might not be able to see it as clearly, and just like that. You might be able to, there's a red, just like that. The next really easy stitch, which is even more basic than the one that I just showed you, is the satin stitch. That's the stitch most people tend to kind of understand, and that stitch I think required 3 strands. And just like that. And then you would, see that? I'm going to start up here. Your satin stitch would go just like that. And of course you do the same on the other side. Hold it. And then you just go down on the opposite side. And then you just come back up as closely as possible, but not through the actual same hole. Up. And then just go down as closely as possible, right next to the exact same hole. And don't worry if your stitches aren't completely uniform. Mine aren't, but I think it kind of gives it a really homemade feeling versus being absolutely gorgeous embroidery like you see on, say, the Tudors or something like that. If you want it to look like that, then obviously you got to take your time, but I prefer more handmade looking things. I just went straight through my stuff at the back. So, just like that. This is a quick demonstration on how to do a satin stitch. It's not going to be perfect. And then you just go over and over and over your design. And a completed satin stitch will look kind of like this. And like I said, I prefer more of a handmade look that's not completely, perfect 100% all the way around. This is a little bit better done with split stitching around it, and I have other sides just like that. And I kind of like it because I think it looks kind of I don't know what you would call it, not country per se, but it looks I like it because I did it myself. But that's basically 2 basics when it comes down to, where did I put my needle? Oh, good. 2 basics when it comes down to embroidery. It's really simple. If you don't even want to do that because you're not even confident with those type skills, of course you can always, I'm going to come down. There we go. Of course you can always use fabric paint, which is great. And you would just paint it on there like you would paint anything else. Get your stencils and just paint. Alright, if you have any questions, alright, just feel free to ask.